everyone. My name is Jennifer Flanagan, and I am the co-founder and CEO of Actua. I am so happy today to have the opportunity to have a discussion with Betsey Chung. Betsey was recently appointed the Global Chief Marketing Officer for TD Bank Group. And today we're going to have a chance to explore some of Betsey's journey to this incredible position. You joined Betsey in 2017, TD, and you have been instrumental in driving the marketing strategies that are really shaping the future of banking in this digital age that we have been in, but that has been greatly increased over the past year within the context of the pandemic. So it's really great to have you here, and I thank you for taking the time to speak with us. You've also been at the forefront of taking the bank's digital marketing approach to the next level, and I'm excited to talk about that. I'm also excited to hear more about the work that you're doing around diversity and inclusion. You've been very active in that area, and specifically how you're incorporating that into, attracting and developing talent within the bank, and how you're approaching it even from a parenting perspective. We'll have a chance to kind of cover the whole range of topics. So I'm thrilled to be talking to you because of the story that you have, but also because TD has been such a valued partner of Actua's since 2017, specifically very instrumental in providing support that has bolstered Actua's National Girls Program. So the programming that we're doing across the country to engage girls and young women in experiences that are building their skills and their confidence in STEM fields, in science and technology. And so that program is annually engaging 150,000 girls. And we've been so pleased to have TD not only as a financial supporter, but so many of TD's amazing women executives have been involved in the program in mentorship and role model roles. So very, very important work, and certainly something that is making an impact across the country and making sure that we have that next crop of female leaders coming up through the ranks. So turning now to getting to ask you some questions. As I mentioned, and as we're all aware, that digital transformation that has happened over the past year being so dramatically increased and across every field, certainly banking, certainly the field that I'm in terms of education, has just been disrupted, dramatically changed. And that has caused the need for digital skills and digital literacy and a very wide range of employability skills that, which are changing and which are sort of developing as we speak. So at Actua, we have long recognized the importance of both the technical and theoretical skills that are gained, or knowledge that is gained in the formal classroom, but also those more human-based creative thinking skills that are developed when people have the opportunity to explore and to innovate and create and invent. And what I think is so interesting about you is that you seem to have sort of mastered or have had opportunities where you have been able to develop both sides. So an accountant by trade, and then transitioning into the marketing world, which is one of my favorite spaces, because marketing is this perfect combination of relationship building and creativity, but also so much technology and so much data. So amazing combination. So if you could maybe start there and tell us about this career path that is not a normal, not normal, but it's not, it's not typical to go from accounting to marketing. So how did you do that? What skills did you kind of carry through, and how has that enabled you to get to the position you're in today?
Yeah, absolutely. And so, Jennifer, firstly, thank you so much for having me on your panel and your this opportunity. It's really meaningful for me in terms of what your organization does. On the topic of young women, I do have two daughters, and I feel that STEM is incredibly important to young people and to old people alike, including myself. Um, in terms of the career path, I did start as a chartered accountant, and essentially, throughout my schooling, math has always been a big part of my life in terms of what I like,
Mm.
the subjects that I like. I also always liked English, and so it was almost the divergence between
Nice.
the more STEM related fields, but then you're right, there's this whole liberal arts type of background as well, and I really enjoyed that. So of course accounting happened to be an area that I ended up starting in because it had both of those. What it really had was an early opportunity at understanding how companies work.
Mm.
And so that was always really beneficial because as a young person starting out as a chartered accountant, you actually get the benefit of working on all different types of clients.
Mm.
And that was really meaningful for me as a young person. And as I then grew to have all those articling hours and basically was 3 years worth of accounting background, I started understanding some areas of opportunity for myself from a career perspective. One of those was consulting,
Mm.
and so when I ended up being a strategy consultant in the UK, a lot of what we did in the UK was marketing driven. So it was marketing plans, customer value proposition. And it was there that I really felt that I wanted to get into marketing. But sometimes there's a stereotype as it relates to being a chartered accountant.
Mm.
And I was thinking to myself, okay, at that point in time, I almost wanted to bury the chartered accounting background on my resume. I didn't I didn't allow for it to pop to the top because I was worried about the stereotype of
Huh.
being a chartered and a marketer. And what I found in my career though is that it's exactly what has differentiated me as a marketer, to know how to drive business results, to have the commercial acumen, to be able to be your CFO and your CMO at the same time. And that is what is so powerful. And then as the digital age started evolving, and more, you'd know that at TD at least, we have progressed in 8 weeks during COVID, what would have taken 2 years
Right,
in terms
right.
of digital adoption by consumers. And so digital has always been an area that was hugely math driven.
Mhm.
And, back, I would say maybe 10 years of my career as a consultant, I was consulting in e-commerce. And e-commerce at the time was really all, there was a huge element of math, a huge element of strategy involved in that. And digital has a huge element of math involved. It's got AI.
Mhm.
All the analytically driven aspects of it is very scientific.
Mm.
And that background in chart accounting was proven to be very useful because along with that background usually is somebody who's really analytical.
Yes.
And that has been the jumping off point for me in terms of into digital.
Mm.
And, and so that really dated back at least 10 years ago. I call it at the heyday of e-commerce. And then now e-commerce is back as a terminology, which is hilarious to me. But it's really hugely important. Like STEM, even as a marketer, STEM is almost the double M. There's a double M in STEM, and then the M is the marketing piece. That is the second M, and it's a really important part of my career.
Yeah. So I love that you are able to recognize now, how that nonlinear path contributed to how you differentiate yourself, and also just, the amount of value that you're able to add by combining those two things. And that's one of the key messages that we try to convey to youth. I mean, a couple of them. One is how great STEM is just as a general background, regardless of what you choose to pursue after that, that the skills that you would develop being in any of the STEM fields really prepares you to look at the world in both a very analytic way, but also in a really like, I want to learn about this and I want to be, inspired by this, and how can I sort of learn from this to kind of jump to the next potential innovation. And so that's a story that we like to share a lot. One of the other things though that you talked about is around that double M in STEM, and the second M being around marketing. Can you talk a little bit more about the field of data and analytics, and certainly how it's driving marketing? Because I think that's an excellent example, but also how it's driving everything. It's part of everything. So we want at Actua, and part of our National Girls Program is to really make sure that we have data scientists and folks that work in this field who are women. Because of the importance of that diversity of perspective in, whether it's in the diversity of data sets in AI, or just generally how this field is being, the kinds of questions that we're asking and how we measure things. So we really want to promote this to girls and young women. So talk about it related to marketing, but just generally how important these fields are.
Yeah, absolutely. And so I know that a lot of us are on social media, and we're on search, right? So a lot of what we do in digital marketing is three things. So it's search, social media, and then there's a third is display. So display is when you're on a website and you see those banner ads.
Yes.
That's what marketers do as well. And so if I just maybe even take the first two, and I talk about a little bit about why data is so important. And so when you are on your search bar and you search for best pair of Nike shoes, marketers like myself basically have visibility over what consumers are searching for. And we see billions of searches every day. That is the best indicator of customer demand. And it's an indication that you and I are raising our hands and we really want something, enough so much so that we're searching for it. And so, how marketing has evolved is, we still have the beautiful television and print and all of that. That's very, very important. But also equally important is how marketing meets customer demand. And that data that customers supply in terms of what they search for is incredibly valuable. On social media, which sadly I participate a lot in. I know that my two daughters do as well. So social media has become such a way for people to consume content. But also in the consumption of that content, as you know, you get things in your newsfeed. Or you're on Instagram and you get things on your Instagram stories or your Instagram newsfeed as well. And so in that, what we do there is that we are really supplying customers and consumers with content they actually are most interested in. And as long as they become, as long as they give us signals that they're increasingly interested in it, then usually, I would say that social media is great because it always makes me feel like somebody knows me. And so the content that I consume is usually in three parts. And I really like sports, to be honest with you. I'm a huge Raptors fan. And so I do get a lot of Raptors content.
Yeah.
I love food and I get a lot of food content. And also, of course, I because I'm interested in competition and what they're doing, I do get a lot of financial services content so that we can keep up with that. But what I love about the Googles, the Facebook, Instagrams of the world is that they're your largest AI-driven organizations, and their platforms are worldwide. They're market leading. They are the STEM on steroids. It's literally, it's been hugely advantageous to be able to partner with the leading platforms of the world as a marketer. When you connect that to then growing the business, we're where consumers most search for things. When they shop externally in Google and Facebook and Instagram. And so as a marketer, being on the platforms that most matter to customers and consumers is really meaningful. It's really, really important to have knowledge of data, to have knowledge of analytics so that we can best serve our customers. And so, I'll tell you a story in that my daughter's 16 and the other's 14, and they want to be entrepreneurs. And so they started a food business on Instagram, and there's a rising surge of businesses started on Instagram these days. E-commerce businesses started on Instagram by young people. And so they started this business that actually provides gluten-free, nut-free, dairy-free baked goods. Amazing. And so, you wonder, well, how does STEM relate to this? STEM is incredibly important to it because you need to know how to price your product. You need to find out what is the best way to deliver that product. So you need to problem solve. How am I going to get this to my customer who's ordered it? So there's a lot of growing entrepreneurs where it's incredibly important to really understand data, understand analytics, and understand how that's going to really power your business.
Yeah.
So hopefully, I know I gave you a couple of different angles to that.
And your daughter, the example of your daughter's business, I think is so interesting. One, I think it's phenomenal that young people can just, this message of like, in the future, you can be a leader or you can be an entrepreneur, you can be a scientist. Like, no, like it's right now. You can do it now. And the amount of learning that goes on there. But the other thing that is so fascinating about that, because of the nature of that business being like dairy-free, gluten-free, nut-free, is that they obviously have a very keen understanding of the end user need. Right. Yep. And so like the empathy that you need to have as a skill, as someone who is innovating or putting a new product out there is, it's so critical. And so that's one of the things that we talk about as well is, empathy, regardless of how much AI is out there, those human skills are still going to be so critical to leverage and advance those technology and digitally driven systems. So I think that example is fantastic. I want to shift a little bit to talk about the work that you're doing, both in your own career, but at TD specifically. TD is such a wonderful corporate leader in the space of investing in a variety of social issues, many of them really tied to strengthening the economy, but in a way that also strengthens our social fabric and social networks in the country. And so that's one of the things I admire about TD's approach. So on this diversity and inclusion in this space, which is has for me, I've worked in this has always been a key pillar in my career and in all of the volunteering and the way that I live, the way that I parent, the way I do everything is based in striving for more equity for groups that haven't had it. I really liked, I went and read and watched a lot of the interviews you've done in the past. And I really respect the way that you have spoken about this issue and what does that look like in your day-to-day life, whether that's about, speaking out or speaking up against inequities that you see or, things that just don't, that aren't right in the space, whether it's how you are mentoring your staff, how you are incorporating this into the way that you're doing business with customers and clients. It's such a hot topic right now, and that's excellent. It's amazing. But I want to make sure that there's actually actions that are driven, from that narrative that's so popular. If you could just broadly talk about, what are some of the things that in the space of diversity and inclusion, what's occupying your brain space right now? What things are you seeing both positive and negative, that,
Yeah.
either needs work or that you're thrilled to see and needs to be bolstered.
Yeah, it's such a really important societal issue right now. And I am trying to do my part for sure. And it's no secret, like I am a Chinese woman who has, is in corporate, in a corporate world, it's been a journey for me. And so people usually approach me and ask me, how did you find your voice? And that's actually probably the re- most uh, most favorite topic, or the most favorite question that people usually ask me. And usually it is, they are visible minorities who come to me across the bank, not only in marketing, but also in other areas of the bank. And it's because, I realized that, what I used to look up to in terms of the visible minority women or men that have made it, um, there's a perception that potentially I've made it now, right? And so I understand that a little bit. I'm still very daunted by it, to be honest with you, because I don't know. Sometimes I'm just, just incredibly grateful that I'm here in the seat. And then I think about, I've got great responsibility in the seat as well. And so in terms of that great responsibility, the things that I've been thinking through is really around, um, how can I make a difference
Hmm.
um, to people's careers, and how do I personally partner with them on their career path?
Hmm.
And um, you know, uh, and it takes a variety of forms. So I usually have something called office hours, where every week I've got an hour, and anyone can book time in my calendar across the team. And so I oftentimes have individual conversations with people to really understand, what's happening. But I also am on 3 different committees. I'm on definitely the Women in Leadership Committee, the Visible Minority Committees, and also I actually chair a Black Employee
Hmm.
Committee for marketing. And there, I think that's an incredibly important area that we need to show some action, and sustainable action that's
Yeah.
very
Right.
um, and I think that there, what I would say is was it really is super, super important to get to personal career plans for each one of our people, to
Hmm.
really understand what it means to them, what do they want to achieve, and then what can I personally do to help them achieve it. And so that's really important to me personally. And then in the great responsibility piece, I just feel like this, it's really important for me to establish a culture where it is very open, and it's a constant learning culture
Hmm.
where we say that we're not done, right? We can never be done. It's like digital. When people say that they're an expert in digital, sometimes I'm thinking, I spent my whole career in it, and every day I'm learning.
Yes.
So how can we be done here? So I think that it's really important for us to be really mindful. And then also, some of these situations are deeply personal. And I've had situations where, in my Black colleague network that I chair, we share with each other some really personal stories. And, during the huge injustices that have happened in the last 9 months, um, some of the things that our colleagues are going through
Hmm.
is so disturbing. And to listen to essentially what they face in their personal lives, so as they walk home from their car to their home, um, the fact that some of our people have to watch over their shoulder, some of the things that they have to tell their sons and daughters, when they see a police person, to keep your hands in front of you. Those are things that are very hugely personal to somebody's well-being.
Hmm.
So I think that it's incredibly important to remain a listener and an empathetic, action-oriented leader.
Mhm.
And anything I can do, I'm trying my best to do, as well on that front.
And for me as a leader in this space, and someone who, gets called a thought leader, it's that constant learning is so important to say, like, yes, I've worked in this space for a long time, but every single day I'm learning how to do it better. I'm learning more about, the continued sort of unconscious bias that I have, even as someone who has deep expertise in this space. But I'm also learning a lot about and making sure that the narrative continues about two things. One is that the issue here for people who have traditionally been underrepresented in STEM is not about them, it's about the context. And this is so important for girls and young women, is that so long, for so long we said, like, okay, well, how do women or how do girls need to change so that they like science more, so that they fit in, or that they can, and it's completely the wrong sort of focus, right? It's really about the context and how, as leaders, we create more open, transparent spaces, and how we do things differently so that people feel included and welcome. And I that's what I really appreciated about hearing you, both in this answer and in other times that I've seen you speak, is that that clearly is something that you're living and working into, the very highest levels of a massive global company like TD. So I very much appreciate that about the way you're doing it. Just to kind of wrap up, I'm wondering if there's anything else that you could speak to in advice that you might have to give to the next generation of leaders who are who either want to work in accounting, or in they don't know where they want to work, or they're interested in STEM, or they just don't know. What are the kinds of experiences they should look for? What are the kinds of skills that they want to be working on?
Yeah, it's such a great question. And having teenagers myself that are women, and that that they have different views, right? So one actually does really well in STEM type of courses. My other one doesn't do as well, to be honest with you, but that's okay. And so they're both problem solvers. And I think that what I would encourage is, um, you know, the next generation, lots of people want to have different careers than the career I have. And they aspire to be entrepreneurs. They aspire to be to make a difference in our society, et cetera. And so I think that what I've seen is that, and what STEM has allowed me to kind of think through is, um, in anything we do, we have to be somewhat of a problem solver. And sometimes the STEM type of disciplines allow us to get into that space
Mhm.
quite nicely, right? And I think that the young people today, they have such great opportunities because they interact so much with digital. You're all digital natives. I wish I was a digital native, but I'm not. But they all are. And what's great about being a digital native is that you use everything that we need right now, and so you become the best customer that we need to think about, right? You're the user that we need to think about. And so if you want to take your lived experience and say, hey, then what is it that that our society needs moving forward? Like, in the case of my daughter, it was she has a food allergies. She has food allergies. And lots of people have food allergies these days. And so hence, she created this gluten-free, like dairy-free, and even it's refined sugar-free. So she uses this coconut sugar, and so it has no refined sugar. But what I've learned out of that is she's now got a following from a lot of people who are vegan. And now I've now seen this customer need, right? There's this need in the marketplace for great tasting vegan food. Now, I wouldn't have known that in my area,
Right.
but she
Exactly.
found that out in her area that she's trying to start. And for those of you who are, thinking about, maybe starting something or doing anything in your career, I think that just that type of seeking and problem solving and being open to possibilities, being the digital natives that most people are in this generation. You're the user, you're the customer, you're the ultimate consumer.
Yes.
So utilize that mentality, because you all have it.
Mhm.
Like, we all have it, right? But I think young people have it more than lots of us, including me. And so I love that spirit.
Yes.
And if we can harness that spirit, I think that would go such a long way.
Mhm.
And that's sort of the spirit that I see that lots of people have, that I admire.
And I love that too, because, it's taking something that, that youth are so passionate about and spend so much time on, but also kind of showing them how this can be used to actually create. And I say that I have 2 daughters as well. They're a little bit younger,
Yeah.
yours, but I say, and only one is, she's on the cusp. She's 12, and of course, social media worlds kind of open up at 13, although she's very much in it already. But I say all the time, I'm like, you can't just consume it. You have to learn the skills to create and to understand how this works, and to understand how to, how not to be taken advantage of, and to stay safe, and to, sort of be a creator. And I agree. I think it's so exciting. And I love that we have this group of people who are coming up and who are already leading, who are, creating and innovating. And we're going to need that to solve the big challenges that we have ahead. Betsey, thank you so much for taking the time to talk. I loved the conversation, and I look forward to more. And I also really look forward to this ongoing partnership with TD, which is making sure that we have this next generation of girls and young women who are exploring and learning and building those skills to drive the future.
That's great. Well, thanks for having me. I really enjoyed it as well. And you now know all about my family.
Yes, I love it.
More than you'd ever want to know.
That's fantastic. I want some of the products, actually, because I'm gluten, dairy. Well, I can have nuts, but I'm those things. I would love to. I wish I was closer. They probably don't deliver to Ottawa, but when we can travel again.
They'll figure it out.
I'm sure they will, actually. I have no doubt. Okay. Have a great day. Thank you.
Thanks, Jennifer. We'll see you soon.
Okay. Bye-bye.
Bye.